Thanks so much, Jared. Welcome to the Midweek Tackle. So much to cover. Player unrest, some significant contract news. AFLW, of course, only a couple of days away, and the final call on whether Geelong will host a home final at GMHBA. We'll have all of that and plenty more for you. My name's Lauren Wood. I'm joined by Scott Gullen and John Ralph from the Herald Sun. Now, John, you brought us the first story around the unrest at St Kilda. Some significant player anger there. You told us on Friday it's developed significantly since then, but tell us, just how far does this actually reach within the walls of Moorabbin?
Hello, guys. So it's not a player exodus just yet, but it's a state of affairs that certainly impacts the club's captain in Jack Steele and its vice-captain as well in Cal Wilkie. So there's multiple players on the brink of considering leaving a club that needs to bring in talent, not lose it. Now, senior players are worried that Jack Steele will be part of the collateral damage. This is a club that is making massive offers to the likes of Tom DeConning, Leclerc and Harley Reed. They just need to clear cap space. He wants to stay. He believes in the future, but he signed a deal at the very top of the market as a dual All-Australian, and right now he's probably not worth that in terms of output. And so what concerns his teammates is whether the club desperately needs him. Are they prepared to just lure him out there in the trade period? Yes, with some deniability, but look for offers for him. So St Kilda needs more talent. Everyone understands that. Scotty, they need to keep their culture as well, and that's a really important driver. This bloke is their captain, and again, Cal Wilkie is their vice-captain.
They haven't looked after their backyard, have they? So explain the Cal Wilkie thing and the Leclerc to us, please.
So Wilkie won't leave the club, and he will say so at the next opportunity. I'm contracted for 2 years and I'm happy where I am. But he was certainly bemused at the fact that these outrageous deals were rolling around. So here's the issue. The players that are potentially and almost certainly coming in, they're getting worried as well. TDK is desperate to play alongside Rowan Marshall. He wants him to stay. I think we all expect he's going down the highway to Geelong. So one of the reasons is, yes, he wants to play ruck with him, but he doesn't want to be public enemy number one. Rowan Marshall's such a popular figure. He's been at the club through thick and thin, and all of a sudden TDK comes in and he leaves. Alia's similarly worried. He'll come to the St Kilda Football Club, but he wants to play with Cal Wilkie. He wants to be the third banana, not the number one banana on big dollars and massive expectations. Scotty, what's your view on a pretty worrying situation all round?
The issue is they should have been ahead of this. We all know that. Getting players in, players understand that. You need more talent to improve. Of course we get that. But they haven't sold this vision early enough. Rowan Marshall only found out last month that TDK was a lock. So you had to, other clubs, and you've got a great example, Brad Scott at North Melbourne. What did he do during that era? So
basically, at the start of every season, he'd say to his senior players, we need to bring young talent in and we need to bring elite talent. And yes, it's on outrageous fortunes. So they offered money to Heaney, to Dustin Martin, to Josh Kelly. They missed out on all of those. But what he said to those players is, if you want to be in this premiership window, we need to offer big bucks. And I think Cal Wilkie has been told the same thing. You know, you will not win a premiership at this football club unless we can get serious about these things. Naz Wanganeen-Miller is a weird situation. So they're negotiating in good faith, and they think the fact that they are negotiating still, that he hasn't just put that deal off, is a positive sign. He's told some of his teammates, look, if I left, and that's an if, I'd go to Adelaide. And they're like, hang on, what about your best mates in Jace Burgoyne and Jason Horne-Francis? And he said, well, it's a small enough town. If I was to go, I'd win a flag. I'd try and get to Adelaide. So, look, there are so many swirling rumours. There is so much speculation around about Marcus Windhager as well and whether he's disgruntled. It's a crazy old story. It still could have a happy ending, but there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, there certainly is. And typically in these scenarios, when it's getting this loud in newsrooms and on social media, you can only imagine what it's like there. Of course, it seems like they're firmly in the race for Harley Reed as well. There's some huge figures being thrown around there. I mean, how all in are they really in joining the queue for his signature?
So they're potentially the stalking horse. So clearly he's being told that, or West Coast's been told, well, you need to find $2.2 million a year. Now, none of the other Victorian clubs are near that. I think West Coast's creeping towards about $1.7 million a year. That's the mail right now. They're certainly not prepared to offer over $2 million. But if you're St Kilda and you know that it's Hawthorn or us, you have to offer crazy deals. And so, again, that would require extraordinary sacrifices. I think that really only works for them if they do lose Naz Wanganeen-Miller with all the picks they get. So I don't think they'll get Harley Reed, but we know they've offered nearly $2 million to Matty Rao, $1.7 million to Finn Callaghan.
It's crazy.
It's preposterous money.
What's the timeline with Harley? We know he's got another year at West Coast. Are you telling me maybe October the world could shake up around Harley Reed?
I still think West Coast will come to the table and they'll get close enough to that $2.2 million. The Victorian clubs who are very keen, clubs like Essendon, have been told he will stay in Perth. He just wants that guaranteed money. So I couldn't tell you, where that gets to, whether it's 1.7 or 9, whether it's 9 years rather than 11. But the really strong starting point is that he wants to stay. And I think from that point on, West Coast gets a deal done.
You talk about what the club need to do there, Scotty. The power brokers could have a bit on their hands dealing with the players that are already there with these sort of numbers that are flying around, couldn't they?
It's crazy. It is crazy. Seriously, it's getting more out of control, Ralphie. We love it because it's our job and we thrive on it, but it is getting insane.
Harley's teammate, of course, Liam Ryan, you're reporting tonight. John is gaining a bit of interest from Melbourne too, so he might not be the only one coming east.
Yeah, that's right. So Josh Barnes says Port Adelaide is now a consideration as well for him. So there's a couple of factors there. Certainly he's turning 29 at the end of the year. He's got 1 year in his contract. He was involved in a bit of a scuffle at the start of the year in which he was exonerated for. There's a couple of cultural factors there where it might be time for a fresh start for him. And so West Coast is open to that. They're not doing a lot of contract extensions right now. So if you're St Kilda, they're really keen to build their Indigenous representation there. If you are Carlton, you're thinking,
I like this. Liam Ryan, I was surprised he was only 29. It feels like he's been around for longer. He has got upside for 2 or 3 years. With a new, fresh start, I'd be doing... Carlton, we mentioned Carlton. Graham Wright loves small forwards. He hasn't really got any of great value there. Oh, go to Carlton.
And with amazing ball delivery, maybe not at Carlton, but better than West Coast. I tell you what, he's an immediate game changer.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And as you say, only 29. I was shocked when I read that as well tonight. Now, Essendon, John, the Bombers, they've got a bit of list culling to do of their own. I know we've looked at them here at the Midweek Tackle desk over the last few weeks and just how much cutting they need to do, for want of a better term. Now, let's go through some of these names one by one. I'm going to throw these at you. Let's start with Ben Hobbs. Where's he at?
Scotty, what do you think?
Out of contract, I would trade him. I think you've seen enough. He's 21, 64 games. He's behind Merritt, Caldwell, Durham, Parrish, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I think you've got to cut your losses with Ben Hobbs. You'll still get something good. Yeah,
let's stick with an out-of-contract few. Of course, Jaden Laverde is another one. I know he's had injury troubles in recent times, but...
He's a depth player, as he is right now when they need him. I think he's about the last one you pick, but you probably keep him.
I keep him because the 3 key position defenders that will all be starting in round 1, they're all injured right now.
Dylan Shiel, we'll get to his tribunal fate shortly. What about him?
No, I think they move on from Dylan. I think someone else might give him a go, like a North Melbourne or something, for a bit of leadership, but I think his time at Essendon's probably done.
Yeah, I agree.
Sam Draper, you've been all over this one. John?
I think at this stage, if he hasn't signed his contract, he's going to move on. They'd be desperately hoping that it's a 6-year deal from clubs like Brisbane. Adelaide's still pushing hard. Don't go to Adelaide. Don't be in a dual ruck situation there. So if it's 6 years and it's probably 850 to 900, maybe it's a first rounder, but I think more likely an end of first rounder.
In terms of in-contract Bombers, that there's going to have to be a call on. Scotty, you mentioned Darcy Parrish there. It's going to be tough.
He intrigues me. 28. He's been linked to Geelong a few times. I mentioned Ben Hobbs. They both can't play in this midfield. That's become obvious. Which one do you let go if you're Essendon? Darcy's had his injury issues. I like him as a player, but the clock's ticking on him. So if I was him and Essendon, I'd be open to a trade if someone presented something quite nice.
Perkins?
I think for Archie's sake. High draft pick, we know. He's gone backwards at a rate of knots this year. I don't know where he is. Is he a half forward? Is he a mid? He sort of floats in between. I think and Essendon would get something good. He's a first-round pick. You might give up a pick 15 to 20 in this draft, John, and maybe you get Archie Perkins.
25 to 30. They bring in Jade Gresham, 3 years on 700 grand. How did they not think that this is going to impact our top 10 draft pick in Archie Perkins? I think that was a big mistake.
He's had a horror. He needs a change.
And everywhere you go, every Essendon fan you talk to, all they want to talk about is Elijah Sartis. Where are you placing
Again, for his own purposes. If he can't break through in this current climate at Essendon, he's had his issues. Everyone points at his problems rather than his positives. I think you go to a new club, preferably probably a successful club, where they go, mate, we know you're good at that. That's why you're drafted in the first round. Just focus on that. We'll worry about the kicking and other stuff, but you can clearly get the ball. You're not getting a good run of it at Essendon. Maybe a bit of it's your fault and you've got to clean up your attitude. He should find a new pasture.
Yeah, I think he'd be really keen on that. I spoke to Liam McMahon, who's the really positive story out of this weekend. So the last pick of the mid-season draft, Corbin Middlemas said, I reckon they might be keen on this kid, Liam McMahon. Who? He's a household name now. So he's desperate to get another contract. I think he's desperate to prove Carlton wrong too, because they overlooked him 3 times in the SSP list. So basically they said to him, they kept comparing him to players that he's like, I'm not that player. I'm not Charlie Curnow. I'm not Harry Mackay. And so he kept on trying to take on their feedback. He called it cloudy feedback. So right now he's living the dream. So Matty Richardson, who's his idol, pumped him up on Friday Night Footy. Jason Dunstall said, "Oh my goodness, look at this beautiful kicking action." I talked to him about that. He just glowed with how excited. He just kept on talking about, "I'm living my dream. I'm living my dream." So he and Lucky Blackiston will get new deals there. Oscar Smart probably. So, and of course Archer May has an 18-month contract. So potentially all 4 of those mid-season picks stay on this list next year.
Another who did get a new deal this week, of course, was Darcy Cameron, the Collingwood tall. He's officially put to bed that he won't be going anywhere. Another 3 years for him, but. How close was he to returning to WA? Sorry, I should say. John, take us inside that deal.
I don't have to tell you that the Collingwood fans were very angry. They felt any talk of disharmony was
You did have some feedback. I
had some very strong feedback. We're used to that. He had a foot out the door. So what happened was he always wanted to stay. We've repeated that a lot of times, but he felt disrespected. So his camp parked the contract about 2 weeks ago. They said, we'll get to the end of the finals, we'll get him to West Coast. Now, in the end, he sacrificed about $1.3 million for that deal. But so what happened was, as he knew that he had his contract parked, a lot of his teammates were really strong. We need to keep Darcy. We feel like he's being treated unfairly. Collingwood felt like this was a distraction. They lost for the 4th time in 5 games against Adelaide. The next morning, email through a 4th year on that contract. So it's not an enormous contract, but it's a lift from what the deal would have been, $550,000 next year. It's a good scenario all round. Collingwood potentially can just move on from the distraction, Scotty. It's a quirky result.
It is 1A in the crisis handbook here, seriously. They're in crisis. They saw what happened against Hawthorn. What can we do? Hang on, here it is. Sign favourite son, Scott Pendlebury, to 1 more year. Oh, no worries, we'll get that out. Sign popular ruckman who teammates love for an extra year, get him on board. It's classic, it's genius, it's deflection, it's trying to get the goodwill going back into that club because they lost it there for a few weeks.
Don't say that, Scotty, you might get a phone call.
I'm going to get a phone call, but that's the truth.
And you know what? He wanted to stay. All the Collingwood players want to stay. It's just about how much money they have. And so that's the best thing for the Pies. They've got hugely loyal players who are now being rewarded.
Nothing gets past our man, does it, Scotty? You've been across this Dylan Shiel tribunal result. It was very, very lengthy deliberations. A landmark case in many ways, and he's been banned for 1 game.
He has. An interesting result is they ignored his teammate. What happened to Leal? That wasn't even part of their judgment. It was all about what potentially could happen to Mark O'Connor.
Even though Mark was unimpeded. Now, Collingwood fans are going to think I'm picking on them because the Brodie Myercheck got fined for something like this, pushed Nick Vlaston into traffic. Nick Vlaston didn't get hurt. He only got a fine. So there's all they've said all night at the tribunal, and we heard from Zeitz earlier, it was a marathon, is they thought the potential for Mark O'Connor to get seriously injured was there, so they upheld it. We initially thought it was all about injuring his teammate. We found the clauses, you can't, even if it injures your team. Yep. To all players, yeah.
Nothing to do with that. We're not even worried about him landing on his head. We're just worried about what could have happened to O'Connor. So then you go back to Ryan Mansell, Ruben Gitt. There's all these examples. Inconsistency. 1 got off, 1 got 3, 1 got a fine. This, Shiel gets 1. Your mate Greg Swann, he's got a lot of work to do over the summer.
It was a forceful push, the MRO said, rather the tribunal said. So I agree with that one. So even if there's a bit of confusion. So what does Swanee do over the summer? I feel like the capacity of players to be able to push in a marking contest now means that people like Dylan Shiel do that rather than flying at the ball. Now, my understanding is that that's not one of the priorities for the AFL. So Jerry Healy's been pushing it strongly. I don't think that's something that they will change. He's got some low-hanging fruit, Swanee. So what are the things that you believe are priorities that he can, with a stroke of a pen, change really quickly? Okay. So we'll put the graphic up. Scotty, what do you think are the really hot-button issues?
MRO is my big one. The ruck, you can sort out right now. The bounce, I think it's just do it for the start of the game, start of each quarter. After that, throw it up so we can get people actually jumping. Last touch out of bounds. I know they keep telling me it works at other levels. I still can't get my head around that. Do you, the AFLW do it? Yeah,
the big lasso motion we're going to see in action this weekend. The stand rule's the big one for me. I know that's growing frustration for fans as teams are really sort of exploiting that little loophole where they sort of hang back and it never actually gets called. But as you say, John, these are things that, there's going to be no financial impost on the AFL to get this. A lot of this stuff, he can really just say that it's happening. I think most of the clubs are on board too.
What you got to do is you got to ask the clubs, and that will happen at a really big meeting on Monday. And so Greg Swann and I assume other AFL officials will bring in all of the 18 club chiefs. And so the AFL will canvass the sub-rule, ruckman walking across the line or having to, of course, leap at the ball, and also the last touch out of bounds rule. I don't think they love the lasso of truth, so I think if they did bring that in between the arcs, they'd find a different remedy for that one in terms of adjudicating it. Those rules will be considered at September's commission meeting. I think the bounce will be considered at October's meeting. And so this is the meeting for clubs to shape the rules. And really critically, they will make the decision in September and give those clubs time to strategise and then train it across summer.
A lot of meetings to come at AFL HQ. A lot of meetings have been happening at Melbourne, Scotty, of course, as they begin the search really for their new senior coach. We know they're yet to get that panel in place. That's hopefully going to happen in the next few days. Adam Simpson, John Longmire, they've both ruled themselves out of contention, but there is a man leaving Port Adelaide in a week or two's time that, you know, you would think that they would make a call to, wouldn't you?
Well, I think the narrative's got a bit confused here. Everyone's saying Ken's burnt out, needs a holiday.
I said last night he's cooked because you talk to Port Adelaide people and they say there's no way he coaches next year.
He's cooked from Port Adelaide because he's had enough. He knows his voice, this change had to happen. He understood that. Living in Adelaide has its issues, wearing down. It hasn't worn down his passion. My mail is that he's still 4 preliminary finals. He's been close to the premiership. He's still got the burning desire in his belly. So if Nathan Buckley clearly is the favourite, a long way out, if for some reason that fell over, Melbourne could do worse than Rincan Hinkley, who, as we know, gets pretty quick results. He knows he gets a fast game plan, as we know.
Up tempo.
The players love him. He's that sort of coach. He can quickly get a spike. So I think you'll find the narrative that Ken's tired and needs a holiday. He maybe needs a holiday from Port Adelaide and the Adelaide environment. But if he gets the phone call, Melbourne, you could do worse.
So you're saying that Ken Hinkley is not a no to Melbourne under any circumstances?
I'm saying he's going to finish with an open mind to he doesn't think his coaching career is finished.
Isn't that interesting? I keep thinking about St Kilda there when Alan Richardson was eventually appointed. He said no, and they went through all the candidates. Mark Williams eventually said, I'm your man. They said yes. He said, I want 5 years at big dollars. They said no, and they called Alan Richardson and they shoehorned him back in. So, I think we all love Nathan Buckley and think he would be a great coach. What if he says no? And what if all of a sudden Kenny from Camperdown finds his way to the Melbourne Footy Club? I love that, Scotty.
Don't rule it out.
It'd be a great turn of events. Of course, John, you've been all over the reporting of the other candidates too. Danny Daly, Brendan Lade, you would think are two that are right there in contention for Melbourne as well. What about the Casey factor? I mean, we're going to hear from Simon Goodwin on AFL 360 tomorrow night, which I think is going to be must-watch, of course, as he joins Jared and Gary. But he gave them a little snipe on the way through, didn't he? He
gave them the full torch and the full drive-by at Casey. And what's really interesting is you talk to people about Melbourne, and they say it was Simon Goodwin who really wanted us to prioritise Casey Fields. Now, of course, they didn't train out there all the time. So it'll be interesting when Gary and co actually ask him, you know, what did you mean about Casey Fields? And more to the point, why did you want to train out there? Because you were the one that prioritised it.
It is compelling. And as I say, he'll be right there at the desk with Jared and Gary on AFL 360 tomorrow night. Now, Carlton, of course, is the other big story today, Scott. Early this morning, we woke to find that our colleague Jay Clark was reporting that football head Brad Lloyd would be departing the club. Jay reporting now late today that Port Adelaide head of football Chris Davies could be in the Blues sights. You mentioned Kenny before and his departure from Port Adelaide. Is that the sort of job that he could like here in Melbourne?
No, I don't think Kenny will do the football managing just yet. I think coaching first. But Graham Wright, our agent of change, he started getting busy on that title.
He wasn't happy with that today.
I know, but we love it. We're going to run with it anyway. He faced the media and he was outstanding. He went through bang, bang, bang. So Brad Lloyd, we know, has gone. The list manager Nick Austin, they're both safe for now, which makes sense. There's a draft and trade period, so he's happy with that. There's 7 assistant coaches who he said, he met them this morning and said, I'll come back to you in a couple of weeks. So they've got to hang anxiously. Out of all that, Aaron Hamill, I think, he's contracted for next year.
As is Ash Hansen, yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. He said he revealed it was 6 weeks to figure out if Vossi was the man, and he claimed no one of authority had rung anyone else. So the agent of change is getting busy. He says, there's not going to be too much, but I don't believe that.
They should sack Graham Wright if he didn't ask senior coaches out there. Of
course, that's his job.
You know, that's his job. That's why they brought him in with amazing footy connections. And so, you can quibble about what's right or what's wrong. That's what you do. That's what Melbourne should have done as well. Even though you've got a coaching contract, you go and ask the best coaches in the land, And if they say no, then you consider your current circumstance.
And he said he wants to keep his big five because he hasn't got enough good players, so I don't really want to get rid of the ones we've got.
You've got to hold fast to them.
In October, John, as we know, that trade table, you can get all sorts of niceness.
Anything can happen. Mitch McGovern's contract features heavily in tomorrow's Moneyball column, John, in the Herald Sun. Tell us about this one, because there's a trigger that may not quite hit the target.
It's a mysterious trigger. So he needs at least one and potentially 2 games to get a deal for 2026. Of course, those games-based triggers mean that, if you tick those off, you get the automatic deal. Came back through the VFL from a hammy injury. He was best to field. It's the first time he's played there since 2002. The club's talking about playing the kids. All eyes will be at selection on Thursday. Now, if he misses out on Thursday, I think we would feel like, is there something at play here? Do they not want to get him that contract? Remember Daisy Thomas, who had a similar deal? He actually handed back that trigger clause because it was limiting him playing football. I think he's in their best 22 or 25, so I'm sure he plays. But, there's just there's some interesting discussion around about whether they would be more likely to want to pay him less than more next year with that trigger clause getting triggered.
Perfect cover, isn't it? It's the unprovable crime, really, isn't it? We'll be back with more very shortly here on the Midweek Tackle. Of course, AFLW minus 48 hours until season 10 kicks off. Carlton v Collingwood at Icon Park. I took on the top 50, boys. The feedback has been strong. We'll look at that and a full preview of the season up next.
History will be made tonight when Carlton and Collingwood kick off the AFL's inaugural women's competition.
There are lines out of the gate at the moment.
Sorry, everyone. Not ideal.
It's such a good opportunity. 10 seasons later, you go back to where it all started, where we had that iconic first game. It meant so much in Australian sport, let alone just women's sport.
There's a piece of history for Jazzy Garner.
It's sort of one of those moments you look back on and you go, can't believe that happened.
What a night awaits on Thursday night. Of course, a return to the scene of the lockout, Carlton and Collingwood, to kick off season 10 of the AFLW season. Ralphie, it's going to be a ripper.
So my Collingwood sources, Ruby Slicer, says that Ash Centra, who you sat down with today, has got a bit of a Pendlebury-style trait. Tell us about this kid. Is she the chosen one?
She is, John, is a simple way to put it. So sat down with her today, revealed this afternoon that she will be unveiled under the bright lights of Thursday night's season opener. You can see her there. Grew up playing Auskick, then basketball, and then has turned her focus firmly to football, and aren't we all the better for it? I'll put this to you. Her Coates League opening game last season, shortened quarters, of course, 47 touches and 4 goals. Spoke to a recruiter today who described her skills as stupidly good, Scotty. So I think this really is the next generation of AFLW players, John, who are going to take this game to the next level. They've grown up on it. She was 9 years old the night of that lockout and has grown up with this front and square in the women's game. So they've held her back a little bit, Collingwood. She's had a bit of a hip issue. They're really eyeing that longevity. They think she can be a generational player, but not everyone re-signs before they even play a game, Scotty, so she's certainly impressive.
So she's not in the top 50 that's just been released, but probably next year. Now, I got a phone call, it was very early this morning, from an Australian Test cricketer.
Hat-trick,
I won't reveal his name.
You got a hat-trick?
Jasmine Fleming's old man. Jasmine Fleming's the Hawthorn superstar, doesn't feature in the 50.
Look, it may have been an oversight, but I am claiming that Hawthorn was so good last season and so electric
Team
that
game.
Unfortunately she was just potentially robbed by a couple of her teammates in the middle there, Emily Bates and Eliza West, of course, inside the top 10 of today's top 50. It's in tomorrow's 8-page lift-out too, so I will give up my number one. I did go with Jasmine Garner, which garnered a little bit of feedback, pardon the pun, going over the top of Ebony Marinoff, of course, last season's league best and fairest. So it is always risky to not put the league BNF winner as the number one. But Jasmine Garner, I mean, she's arguably the competition's best all-round player. She can do it in the air. She can do it on the ground. Mon Conti right up there too. But it is always one of those ones, isn't it, that you never run the stiff to miss section because then you can just tell everybody that they were number 51.
Mim Strong, Matilda Schultz, two statuesque ruckmen who were amazing in the finals. There too, I'm really keen to see as well. Now, Is the proverbial about to hit the fan with some significant rule changes?
Look, it could be. We're reporting tomorrow that the captains have expressed their significant dismay at the proposed rule changes. So these are things that have been put in place by the AFL to free the game up, reduce congestion and keep the ball moving. The one point of contention surrounds holding the ball. So there's going to be a very stricter interpretation, particularly on prior opportunity. So players effectively, you've got to get and then you've got to give as quick as you can.
The prize basically gone.
Exactly right. So Jared Healy has had a big go, of course, a Brownlow medalist and Hall of Famer, basically saying, you know, the girls are well within their rights to be up in arms about this. What are they expected to do? Get the ball and sort of throw it up into the air. Why would you want to go for it, really, if we're going to reward the tackler immediately? So all 18 skippers met with the AFL Commission, Andrew Dillon, Laura Kane and Greg Swann last week. And my understanding is that at that meeting there was significant disgruntlement from the players who made their voices heard on this issue. So it's not a AFLW pre-season with a bit of biffo, is it, Scotty?
So at least they're playing on absolutely pristine elite surfaces, Lauren.
Well, this is the other thing. We're days out from the season, John, and surfaces are well and truly in the spotlight. Today we've had a game moved from Leaderville Oval to Mineral Resources Park. And I can tell you as well that Victoria Park, there are questions being asked about that. That doesn't host a game until round 2. You can see some pictures here that were sent to me
I'm
today.
not sure about that one, Lauren.
Of that wing side of Victoria Park. There's also a little bit of patchiness, the photos that I've seen in that sort of pocket area at the city end as well. So Greater Western Sydney play there next week. They are seeking assurances from the AFL at the moment around player safety. They raised concerns earlier in the season off the back of a VFL game. So I know that they've asked the question of the AFL ahead of round 2, so getting ahead of it by a week. But not ideal at this time of year, is it? So.
This is why she's the AFL superstar reporter.
It's a massive season ahead. We're all really excited. But what I really want to know, John, is we could potentially have a final in Geelong?
No deal. Absolutely no deal. So Steve Hocking, the Geelong CEO, he threw it up across the weekend. A 40,000-seat spanking new stadium. He'd said, you're saying there's a chance? There is no chance. And
Gold Coast, 40,000, perfect, fit in nicely.
Imagine if they had a 40,000-seat stadium there and any Gold Coast person for their first final in 15 years of history was not able to get into that game. So the contract basically states that if a game has the capacity to be 60,000 in Melbourne, it has to be at the MCG. Even that St Kilda GWS elimination final 2 years ago was 68,000. Geelong's got 90,000 members. So whoever it's against, whether it's Fremantle, of course, you know, the Fremantle game of all those years ago, which the Dockers got up and won. It's not happening, Cats fans.
Well, I know what they'd prefer if Jezza kicks that 100. It'll be a much smaller number. Fantastic work by both of you. We'll see you next time on the Midweek Tackle and codesports.com.au. We'll see you there.